Hello, Internet, and thank you for joining me today. So, I hate all of the modern live-action remakes. There's maybe like one or two that aren't trying to expand my rectum, but none of them truly justify their existence, in my opinion. I find that in the best of times, they just tell the exact same story and change almost nothing. But that just feels insulting on its face. I think the prevailing theory is that live action makes it a real movie, as if animation doesn't take time or talent and is the lesser art form. This is especially insulting to us 90s kids, because most of us had our formative movie experiences with these same animated films. Remaking them again in live action is just the tasteless cash grab that Hollywood wants to call us bigots for not buying. And now with that rant out of the way, today we have How to Train Your Dragon. DreamWorks picking up the rights to a book and then not following it at all again. For those of you not in the know, Shrek the book has nothing to do with Shrek the movie. Just like How to Train Your Dragon is nothing like its book origin and is just to cash in on name recognition. Well, now that I've explained and ruined my own joke, what did I think of the How to Train Your Dragon live action? Well, in the ranking of offensiveness, to me personally, I'd place it closer to honking half a second after the light turns green and further away from farting on a crowded elevator. Come with me, lovelies. Let's check this out. So, we start in the exact same place as the animated version with a dragon attack on the village while Hiccup narrates. It's honestly so close to a shot-for-shot remake of the original that I'm honestly just getting kind of bored, and I miss the nice visuals from the original, which is not to say that the original had amazing visuals, but they were still better than what I'm seeing here. Keep this critique in mind, since it's a big one, and one that I'm going to be making pretty often during this review. Anyway, Hiccup uses one of his inventions to take down this super dangerous dragon called a Night Fury. But since it's at night and no one sees it, no one believes him. Yeah, you see, your boy is kind of the village screw-up that no one likes, and he's also the son of the chief, Stoic the Vast. And aside from being disappointed to his father, Hiccup is kind of the aid, I guess, to the local blacksmith Gobber. Alright, so after the kerfuffle with the Night Fury, the rest of the Vikings head off to destroy what they think is the nesting ground for the dragons, while Hiccup and all the other kids stay behind to train to be dragon slayers. This becomes a problem though, because despite wanting to be just like everyone else, earlier Hiccup finds out that he has empathy for dragons when the Night Fury shot down doesn't eat him, and Hiccup doesn't have the heart to kill him. But Hiccup kind of feels like he has to go along with the whole dragon slaying thing as to be less of a disappointment to King Leonidas. So cue the montage of Hiccup learning about dragons from Toothless, the marketable dragon he downed, while simultaneously learning how to kill them by Gobber. Also, during this period of the film, Hiccup is training himself and Toothless so that they can fly together like in all the trailers, because what's a dragon movie without riding the dragon? And not the fun way like they do in Beijing. So things progress like this, with Hiccup steadily getting more appreciation in the ring with the dragon slaying until he gets the honor of killing a dragon in front of the entire village. And it's around this point when Astrid, the love interest character, finds out Hiccup has been training and all of that with Toothless, and they ride together until they find the actual dragon's nest, where it's revealed that all of the dragons are actually stealing from the Vikings, not because they're evil dicks, but because there is a big old chunky dragon that is threatening to kill them if they do not feed him. This makes both Astrid and Hiccup turn into big old hippies and decide to be vegans and never kill dragons again. Which is a pretty big problem because Stoic hates hippies and demands that Hiccup commence with the murder of a dragon. This results in Toothless being discovered by Stoic and the rest of the Vikings, and Stoic and the rest of the Vikings figuring out that they can use Toothless as kind of a bloodhound, and that helps them find the nest. Predictably, this goes poorly, as the big dragon just wrecks the humans, meaning that Hiccup and the gang have to use the dragons that they used for training to rush in and save the day. Hiccup rides Toothless and convinces his dad that he's not just a white waste of space, unlike me, by beating the big old chunky dragon with the power of friendship. And finally, to wrap up the rest of the story, we find out that Hiccup lost a leg, didn't die in the ensuing explosion in the climactic battle, and everyone just goes back to being hippies like Hiccup and Astrid are. Alright, so with the summary out of the way, if you were familiar at all with the original How to Train Your Dragon, you're going to notice that it is basically beat by beat the exact same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do some comparing and contrasting in this next section, starting with the characters. Alright, first things first, one of my favorite characters in the original is Gobber. He's great comic relief, but he also provides a lot of the emotional core of what this movie is. And Nick Frost kinda sucks as Gobber. Not that I hate Nick Frost, but his cartoon counterpart just has so much more character to him. I'll touch on this a little bit later, don't worry. Next we have Gerard Butler, who has been playing this character for so long that no shit he's good at it, but he kinda just looks dumb. Again, I'm going to comment on this later in the video, but the animated version was able to give him so much personality with just his size and beard that it looks dumb when they try to simulate it in live action. Moving right along here, Astrid's up next, and she gets more development in this remake, but it's not really enough to make me think differently of her in the remake versus the original, and they kind of just front-loaded the character development from the sequels. So she does do some things differently, but again, not to justify remaking the entire movie. She does get a cool moment in the climax though. The other kids all do the same things they did in the original, with one exception being Snotlout, who gets a daddy issue arc, but it's a blink and you miss it kind of thing. Also, I kind of feel like they want me to laugh at this, but none of it's very funny. Put another pin in it because I'll be talking about this one later, but nothing too exciting with them. And finally, we come to Hiccup. This one's going to be a bit tougher to just summarize in a couple of sentences, because I really do think this guy does okay, but the original performance is so iconic that it's hard to ignore certain differences. But like the rest of this movie, he's just okay and kind of just here for the paycheck. He brings nothing new to the character, I don't think, but I didn't hate watching him, so it's kind of if it's not broke, don't fix it. Alright, moving on from the characters, it's time to start pulling some pens out. And really, most of my criticism boils down to the fact that what works in animation looks stupid in live action. The super skinny Astrid bashing things around in live action looks silly, where when it was 3D animated, it didn't look all that bad. And Stoic having this massive beard and horned helmet and his head being smaller than his shoulders looked fine in animation, but it honestly looks really fucking silly when he sticks out from everyone else who's supposed to be wearing the same kind of stuff. And it would be remiss of me not to mention Gobber. Again, one of my favorite characters in the original, but the stomach that they put on Nick Frost looks bad. We talk about people not getting into shape for a role, but normally it's because they are too fat. And this is the opposite. Like, being fat wasn't Gobber's whole thing, but why not just make him as fit as Nick Frost? There's no need to put a pillow under his shirt and embarrass everyone, including the audience. And I also want to point out, in the final battle, whenever we have a bunch of these dragons and CGI effects on screen, there are some points it just looks awful. Like, overall, it's not an assault on my eyes, but there are these moments where it's very clear that the actors have nothing to go off of, and they don't have the experience to really pull off and sell that they are in this environment that we see them in. But let me move on from the visuals here and talk about the real differences between the two movies here. There's only two spots that I notice significant difference. One's pretty hilarious, and the other one's actually kind of offensive to me. So, When Astrid's actor got announced, there was this big hubbub about her race not strictly being Scandinavian, if you catch my drift. I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole from my end here, but they bring up in the movie that everyone has kind of come from somewhere else to join this village, and I personally find this hilarious. Like, why justify it if it doesn't matter? Also, I kind of like that they did this. I was very uncomfortable sitting in the theater watching Beauty and the Beast when all of a sudden there's all these people running around that, yeah, they might not have been there by choice. So at least we know all of the people in this movie are like free and shit. Whatever, this movie's about dragons and daddy issues, so let me move on to the next thing. So the moment I found offensive comes when Astrid is dressing down Hiccup after their first day of training. She's basically telling him her life is hard and she wants to be chief one day, which actually gives her a bit more character than the animated version, so that's pretty good. But then Hiccup uses the line, "all of this," and gestures to himself. Now, if you've seen this movie, animated or otherwise, this is a key moment in Hiccup's development, where everyone is talking to him and saying that, you know, he needs to change everything about himself so that he can be like everyone else. And him using this as self-depreciation really feels mean-spirited. It might just be that they are presenting this wrong, and in the original he does say the exact same line, but the presentation's so different that I did not notice it, and I did not think of it as so mean. But in this context, in the live action remake, we are watching this character basically pull himself down, trying to impress a girl, but it's so weird and out of place for him to do that because this is so deeply personal to him. And I just don't remember that in the animated version. And this also ties into what's going on with Snotlout. Every scene you see with him and his dad is supposed to be, I guess, funny because his dad is ignoring him. But to me, that's like not funny. Like, they don't set it up. They don't pay it off. There's not really a joke here. It's just supposed to be, oh, hey, his dad doesn't like him. Ha ha. Like, it's just mean-spirited. And that's kind of a tone that they take with a lot of the characters in this movie, including Fish Legs, which I won't expand on it for time reasons, but he just gets treated a lot less good in this remake than he does in the original. Realistically, I think that this is execution more than principle that I'm standing on here, but I'm somebody who resonates with the original message quite closely, so I kind of feel like this was unnecessary for all these characters. Now, a third thing I wanted to mention, and even though it's not really different than the original, but it's a huge missed opportunity, and I wasn't sure where to put this in the rest of the video, so I'm putting it here in the end. But if you look at the scene where Hiccup reveals that he's a hippie and Stoic freaks out, causing the nightmare dragon he's fighting to freak out, in that scene, Hiccup puts down his weapons and armor to prove to the dragon he's not a threat, and Stoic just kind of watches for a bit, but he doesn't say anything to stop the fight until after Hiccup takes off his helmet. Now, they play a scene earlier as kind of a joke in the original. I don't think they included it in this remake, but I'd have to go back and check, and I'm not going to do that. But they make this joke that this was armor worn by his dead mom. It's part of her breastplate. Haha, titties. But when Hiccup strips it off to make himself less threatening, that is the moment that both Hiccup and Stoic realize that Hiccup is never going to be a Viking, or at least a Viking like Stoic is. And it's honestly a really powerful moment where Hiccup is rejecting everything about his heritage and his father, at least the ways that they are, and it's going to eventually force both of them to change. And the moment was just really powerful in the original, and I think it's a shame that they didn't go back and emphasize this, because in the original it is again a blink and you miss it moment, and again in this they just repeated that by making it a blink and you miss it moment. So there's nothing gained here where there was a huge opportunity to do it. I feel like I need to emphasize that I don't think that the original is some unassailable classic that they're mangling by remaking it. I think that there was opportunity for improvements that they could have made in this, but after seeing the trailer, I pretty much knew that they were gonna just make the exact same movie again, which is what they did. And that's not the worst thing in the world, but honestly, I don't see the point in it because the original still holds up. The animation still holds up. So what was the point in remaking this again? Oh yeah, millions of dollars, because this thing's going to do gangbusters regardless of what I say. So I'll end with this statement. There's no reason to see both. If you liked the original one, then you've already seen this movie and you don't have to go see it again. However, if you're new to the series, this isn't the worst place to start. But really, that's all I've got for today. So if you liked this video, support me by giving me a like and subscribing if you aren't. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subs and all that jazz so I can get monetized. But until next time, sayonara, bitches.